Hello to everyone joining. Thank you so much for your time today to hear more about the Oxford Advanced Management and Leadership Programme. It's great to see some names I recognise from those I've been in contact with over email, so I hope you find today's session valuable. You'll hear today from myself and my colleague Sarah, but also Dr. Andrew White, who is the Programme Director for the Oxford Advanced Management and Leadership Programme, as he presents his vision and design for our upcoming hybrid programme, which commences virtually in May. So as I said, I'm Corinne, I'm the Business Development Manager for the programme, so it's likely you may have heard from me over email. So if you have any questions following today's presentation, please do let me know. Hopefully you've got my details, but I will also follow up with an email following today's session. So I'd like to hand over to my colleague Sarah to introduce herself to you as well.
Good morning, it's lovely to see you all. Thank you very much for joining us. So as Corinne said, my name is Sarah Lacey. I'm the Programme Operations Manager here for our Executive Education Programmes at SCI Business School. So my team work very closely with participants on their AMLP programme journey in terms of making sure you're set up for the programme, any sort of requirements you have, and facilitating the sessions as well. I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Andrew White, who is the Programme Director.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, wherever you are in the world. It's great to be with you today. As Sarah and Corinne have said, my name's Andrew White. I'm a member of faculty in the business school, and I look after the Advanced Management and Leadership Programme. So Corinne, if we could go to the first slide. So what you have in front of you is really my vision or my sense of what the architecture of the programme looks like. Some of you may recognise this model from school when you did physics. It's actually Newton's inverted prisms. And the principle of this is if you shine white light into a prism, it fragments into coloured light. And then if you shine that fragmented colour light, the rainbow, back into another inverted prism, it turns it back into white light on a different trajectory. And this captures what we're trying to do with the programme. In essence, we work with a group of about 40 senior leaders at a time per cohort. We start very much with you, what your challenge is. We don't start with, it's not like a mini MBA curriculum. So we spend a couple of days really, if we're on campus, really trying to dissect what your current leadership challenge is. Where are you in your leadership journey? We then start by going into what we call the challenge of the 21st century. And more today, every leader is having to face not just what's going on in their own organization, not just what's going on with customers and shareholders, but really answer a question: what's our role in the world? And what are the challenges and the risks associated with that? So we bring in largely faculty from around the university to do that, people who are studying these things. We then go into what does that mean for the scenarios that your business will face. I think we've got one of the best scenario planning teams in the world here at Oxford, and they'll really take you through a guided process as to what the scenarios are for your business, your organization, your government, whatever you're responsible for. We're then able to then drop into, what your organization's purpose is. Why do you exist? What do you exist for? It's a question that's come up over and over again, really since the 2008 financial crisis. But now other things are really stimulating that conversation in boards and amongst executive teams. Then going into your performance challenge, what is it you've got to get done? And then finally, what's your leadership initiative? What are you going back to do? And how do we help you with that? Right throughout the process of this is executive coaching. We also do case studies, and these case studies don't come from us, they come from you. So we do deep dives into organizations that you guys represent, the participants. And at the end of it, I've designed what I call a leadership playbook. And this is what you will complete. It will be highly customized to you, and it will really state what you'll go back and do, and where you are, and make that really quite crystal clear in your leadership journey. So that's the overall focus of the program. It's an intense activity of deconstruction and then reconstruction about who you are as a leader. So Corinne, if we could go to the next slide. So as you can imagine, like every organization, COVID has disturbed us or disturbed our regular operating model. And so what we have done is for this coming May, when we would have been running a 3-week program. We've taken the 3 weeks, and if you can imagine, we've taken 2 weeks and we've designed that into a 10-week virtual program. And I'll come back and talk about that in a minute. The other week, we have positioned towards the end of October, early November, for you to have an on-campus Oxford experience. So let me come back. What does the 2 weeks that's gone into the 10 weeks look like? Well, essentially, I take that model that you've just seen and turn it into sessions that happen twice a week. So every morning and every Tuesday and every Thursday, there will be a session, and that session will be repeated twice. So it will be repeated. So it happens twice. So we're trying to accommodate those of you who are in the Eastern Hemisphere and those of you who are in the Western Hemisphere. So we know it's not a good idea to be up at 2 a.m. in the morning trying to learn. It doesn't work. I'm actually myself studying an online learning program, and there was a session that was being run out of Asia last night at midnight. And I have to say I wasn't on that because I know my mind is not in the right place. And I've got several of these events to do today, and I wasn't going to be in a good shape to do that. So we've tried to put those sessions in. So for example, Ian Goldin will be doing his session early in the morning UK time and later in the day UK time to accommodate those of you who are, for example, in Asia, or those of you who are on the west coast of the US. And then people in between, you know, if you're in largely within the European time zones or into Africa, you can choose which one's most convenient. So you can see there how those sessions develop. Also running, if you look across the bottom, will be one-to-one executive coaching. We've got guest speakers coming in. I'll be running an optional meditation for leaders process that will run right the way through that. We'll have case studies, which will come from you. And we'll have a program director clinic. And the program director clinic is really to give you an opportunity to chat with me. There won't be an agenda. I know how important lunches, dinners, breakfasts and coffee times are on the program for me to catch up with you with anything that's, you know, you're concerned about, or, you know, that might not be working for you. We wanted to put that informal time into the program. So we could go to the next slide, Corinne. So you can see that runs right the way through, starting to go into my organization's purpose, finance. We bring in some of the leading faculty that we've got. Rachel Botsman is at the forefront of, you know, I think thought leadership. She's got, I think, got one of the highest viewed TED Talks ever. Andrew Stevens, one of our professors of marketing, is at the forefront of understanding how the digital world is evolving, not just from a commercial point of view, but from an ethics point of view as well. And you've got Jonathan Trevor, who's just published a book on strategic alignment, which has really captured the imagination of a lot of business leaders as well. So you can see going through, we are trying to give you as much face time and insight of the faculty as you would have got on campus. So on to the next slide. So then we get to the end of the virtual module. And this is where I think the real value add is of going through this virtual experience. We'll finish this in the beginning of July. You'll then have all of July, August, September, and October. We'll support you through that period of time with one-to-one coaching, the program director clinics, action learning sets, and also we'll have a Canvas virtual learning environment in place. But you can go and do stuff. And so if you come on the 3-week program, you have an intense, wonderful Oxford experience, but then you kind of get put back into the workplace. Whereas here, you're going to go through some learning, you're going to build some friendships, some peers who can support you. And then you've got an opportunity to go and do stuff before you come back to Oxford later in the year. So if I take you into that, so we're going to come back on the 29th of October. All of this is subject to the COVID regulations as they evolve in the COVID situation. And if we can't do it in October, we will move it to early in 2022. But our commitment is to you. As soon as we can do this and it's feasible, we'll make it happen. So this week really is about your leadership journey and who you are as a leader. It's much more experiential. We've put into this 7-day period, this module, the things which we felt wouldn't be as good done online. So things like we do a session on voice, vision and vitality, how you present yourself. Sarah and Rosenthula will come in and talk about critical conversations you need to have. Nicholas Yanni does something which is highly experiential around your leadership presence. And we've also got Michael Smets, one of the leading professors in the business school, who understands so much about leadership in the 21st century, talking as well. Right throughout this, we want to give you an incredible Oxford experience. So again, subject to COVID regulations, we want to be taking you to the colleges for dinners, subject to the weather. We want to take you out and some lovely walks and other experiences that you can have around some of the beautiful old buildings that you can see in Corinne's background, actually. For those of you who haven't been to Oxford. And then we have an amazing graduation dinner, which you're welcome to bring family to. And that's an opportunity for us to celebrate as a cohort the entire journey. Next slide, Corinne. So just to go through the details, the hybrid program runs from the 11th of May to the 6th of July with live sessions on Tuesdays and Thursdays with time options to suit people in different parts of the world, complemented by one-to-one executive coaching, guest speakers, meditation for leaders, case studies and program director clinics. You'll get support between the modules, and then there's an on-campus module from the 29th of October to the 6th of November. And obviously the accommodation fee is much, much lower on this one. So that's really all I have to say. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. Your interest in the program is really appreciated, and I'm more than happy to take any questions that you've got or address any concerns that you might have.
Hi there, Andrew. It's Julie Langford here, and thank you so much for the presentation. That was really, really helpful and great to get a wee bit of a sense of the topics you would be covering. Just around the sort of deconstruction model and reconstruction, I guess that's about trying to be relatively bespoke to that leader. Could you just explain a little bit more about how bespoke that is and what actually that process feels like for the individual?
Yes. So we start with going through what we call a leadership context assessment, which really enables an individual to step back and say, where am I? And there's a whole series of questions that they go through. Some of that's numerical scoring, and then some of that's qualitative description. That's then used in peer groups and with us as the faculty team to really try and understand what the context is, both for the individual, but we're also working with people who are bringing their organization as well, and that's really important. So it's as much about the organization as it is about the individual or the part of the organization they're working with. That leadership context assessment is not static. What do I mean by that? It's not done just once. It's come back to over and over again through the program. As I go through different sessions, I may think, on a certain factor, I'm an 8 out of 10, but actually on reflection, I think we're only a 4. So it really, that's what that does. The second process we use is what's called a disruptive leadership assessment exercise. This is taking the risks and opportunities that this world presents, working out which ones are most important, and how well are we set up as an organization to address those risks and seize those opportunities. So what do I mean by this? So if, like many organizations, we've had to sprint because of COVID into the digital world. If I'd done this before, I would say digital is a huge risk and opportunity for the business school. I would assess how aware are people, I would assess how capable we are. And that's what that disruptive leadership readiness assessment exercise is about. Again, it's not static, it's dynamic. It's meant to be discussed in peer groups. That takes us, that's the front end of the program. The back end of the program is where the leadership playbook starts to come together. And this is a process that I've designed, which it captures what is, in this point of time, with this situation, with this leader, what does what's this person's understanding of the world, and what does this person need to get done, and how is this person going to show up? What are their strengths? What are their development areas? It's more than a development plan. It's in that sense. And that's what the individual will leave with. And in a sense, you know, can be shown to nobody but themselves. It could be deeply personal. It could be shown to their partner. It could be shown to their coach. It could be shown to their line manager. It could be presented back to their team. We're very, what's the word, open to how that might show up and the appropriateness of it back into the organization, if that makes sense. For some people, it's very organizationally focused, and it very quickly turns into a set of slides. Guys, I've been away for, you know, 3 weeks at Oxford. This is what I've learned. This is what I think we should be doing. This is where we should be going. For other people, it's about a career change. And, you know, and we're open to that breadth of outcome. So in a sense, that's what that process looks like, and it's supported by coaching. It's supported by case studies, and what case studies are where an individual will do a deep dive into something from their organization. So if, for example, I mean, it's incredibly broad, but in terms of structure, it's 2 or 3 pages with 3 or 4 critical questions that individual is facing. So for example, it could be, you know, I don't get on with my boss. And these are the reasons why. It could be, I'm not sure I've got the right team. It could be, we need to make an acquisition in order to grow. It could be that we're stagnant as an organization, we're not growing. It could be we've got to make a massive shift towards digital. I mean, it's very broad in terms of what those case studies are. But in essence, the individual presents for about 10 to 15 minutes. And then the class has an opportunity to ask questions, and then the class can give advice based on their perspective. And for the individual, you know, they get a wonderful set of insights from usually, you know, 35 people from multiple different parts of the world. And that's one of the beauties of this program, is it's very global in nature.
Thank you.
Hello, Andrew. My name's Nicola Vogt. I have a question, if I may.
Hi, Nicola. Yeah, please do.
So I work for a large global company that's headquartered in America. And as part of their long-term plan to get to the executive circle, we're required to take a leadership course. And they tend to sponsor the Stanford leadership course. However, when I look at your curriculum and hearing the explanation today, I feel that your course is much better suited to not just my personal use, but also where I'm in the organization, and also for a global perspective. As I already have a North American MBA, albeit many years ago. So I feel that. I don't know if you're aware of the Stanford leadership course, but if you are, would you be able to give me a couple of bullet points that sort of differentiates that type of one-year course compared to what you're offering today?
Yeah, I have to say I'm not familiar, because there are so many programs we compete with around the world. All I can say is what's, I think, different about what we offer. I think the program is designed to produce what I would call 21st century leaders. It's very much, yes, it's about how do you run your business better, because, you know, if you don't do that, then you don't succeed at the basics. But we're in Oxford, and I think never before has there been a moment in history when leaders have to understand the complexities and breadth of the outside world, as well as the internal aspects of their organization. And I would say there are only a handful of universities around the world who have that type of research and have that type of history that they can do that. And they're not all doing that. And they're not all, so when you look at some of their programs, they're not all bringing the university in that way. And the final thing is, I think we are, well, there's 2 other things. We are very global. Not all the US schools are in terms of their cohort. So for example, we would only expect out of a group of 40 individuals, less than 5 to be from the UK. and less than 10 to be from Europe. And it's very much our intention that we bring in the breadth and diversity of the world into the classroom. And we have that highly customized process that I just described. You know, so the assessment tools, the case studies, the leadership playbook, it's very much about, you know, I often make a joke, a lot of executive education programs send people away feeling good and with some crumpled up flip chart paper in their bag, or notes on their iPad that they've got to go and make sense, you know, back into the organization. I don't want to do that with you. I want you to leave with a really nice looking document that will do as much as we can in terms of its pro forma. You've got to do the content, but you've got something that really captures this experience and how you're going to go back and make an impact with it. So in a sense, every participant gets interviewed. I don't let people on if I feel as though they're not coming with, well, my acid test is, would I put this person up in front of the class to do a case study? So if they're not coming with an interesting organization, if they're not at a point where themselves they're wrestling with things and they have got a bit of grit in the oyster, whatever metaphor or way you want to describe it, there has to be something that makes that this person isn't settled and isn't just coming along for a nice Oxford experience, that there's some runway in front of them where they really want to make an impact on the world. They don't need to know how, and they don't need to be that far into the question, but it, you know, just have to get that sense that that question is there. I hope that helps.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good morning, Andrew. I have a question, if you don't mind.
Yeah, hi Dale.
You mentioned you've pivoted to the virtual deliveries from the traditional face-to-face on location. Would you mind speaking to the learner experience on that based on?
Hi Dale, I don't know about everyone else, but I was missing some of what you said. So I think if I just recapture it and then you nod, so basically, what have we learned about pivoting to the virtual experience, and can I talk to that experience? Yeah. So I think we have been really pleasantly surprised that there is a considerable value learning while you're doing. So our other model was you leave the world of work, you come to Oxford, you go back into the world of work. And what we're seeing is actually being able to study over a period of time when you're still in the workplace, it gives you an opportunity to digest more, go back and experiment, particularly on this program where you've got a good chunk of time to actually go and do something in between the end of the virtual module and then coming to Oxford in late October. So, you know, what it does do is it means that you've got to be much more disciplined because it's very easy to let work creep into your schedule. And so that's a challenge for people. But, you know, the advantage is if you can make it work, you've just got more opportunity to hear something, go and try something, talk to a group of people. How did it go for you guys? What are you learning? It's a slower and I think potentially more impactful pace, if that makes sense. But not without challenges. And I think the biggest challenge is it's just easier to say to you know, to family, to friends, to colleagues, I'm going to be in Oxford for 3 weeks. Don't expect to hear much from me. It's much harder to do that when, you know, you've got to try and protect a session for a couple of hours on a Tuesday and a Thursday, and your PA is trying to put meetings in, or you've got clients trying to meet with you, and you've got that complexity. It's a harder thing to protect.
Andrew, I don't know if you want me just to step in here, just Dale, just so you're aware. So executive education within Snow Business School, obviously all of our business has had to pivot to the virtual module from on campus. And Andrew sort of briefly touched on a platform called Canvas, and this sort of answers some of Nicola's question as well about the year-long Stamper programme. With the virtual environment we have for learning, it's a really interactive tool, and actually the feedback we've had on the numerous programs we've delivered so far is that people are still gaining the enrichment, the networking opportunities and all of the development opportunities through this platform, which is live for a year over the course of your program. So actually, you know, you've got a resource there, a portal of information, connections to your cohort, you know, faculty engagement as well. And that, to be honest, has been a real game changer for us in terms of executive education. You know, it's online, people can access it. And as Andrew says, you know, yes, it is a little bit more disciplined, but actually each member of my team would sort of spend time with you as a participant to sort of lay out what that platform looks like and help you be able to build and shape your sort of journey with us as well. So there's quite a lot, which is probably more so than if you were coming on campus. You're sort of given in a platform which is more of an information portal, whereas this is a sort of a higher level sort of engagement with the programme team.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from anybody else?
Andrew, I did have one more, if I may.
Yes, please do.
Could you explain a little bit about the assessment tools you're using? I love the idea of a disruptive leadership assessment tool. Could you explain a little bit about both of them, the one you talked previously and that one specifically as well?
Yeah, so these are tools that I've created. So they're not psychometrics with tons of you know, tons of worldwide data around them and things like that. They're more management and leadership tools.
Okay.
We could potentially send you copies. We're just having them redesigned.
Okay.
And they're just coming back from our digital people. So if you could give us 3 or 4 weeks, we could probably send out and show you what they look like. What I've got at the moment is the redesign kind of quite rough spreadsheets, but they'll show you the types of questions. But you know, we can send you something that looks more like the real thing in terms of its design and look.
That would be really helpful, because we do use a series of assessment tools for executive and senior leaders when we put them into very senior posts or they're recruited in, and we use that as a basis for their development to some degree.
Yeah.
And it'd be really interesting to see what you're using.
Yeah, I mean, these are more organizationally focused. In terms of the psychometrics we use, which are more individual, we use NEO.
Okay.
And we have a session with Professor John Stokes on that. So these are more organizational. They're more about me assessing my context and the organization's context than an assessment of me as an individual, if that makes sense.
And so do they have an individual assessment as well in terms of their strengths and weaknesses, or is it just through the lens of what's the organizational challenge you're facing into and what's
so
the
that's where the NEO would come in.
And so they get that as well?
Yeah, they get that as well, yeah.
Okay, that's really helpful. Sorry, I hadn't picked that up. Thank you.
Any other questions from anybody? Okay, I think we'll leave it there. That's been wonderful. Thank you so much for the interest. It's really good to see you. If it's evening for you, have a good evening. If it's afternoon, I hope you have a good rest of the day. And if it's morning, and I hope you have a good rest of the day as well.
Thank you very much. It was really helpful.
Okay, take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.